Right now, you find out about a storm from an app. A red blob creeping across a map, a push notification, a number telling you exactly how many hours you have left. You trust a satellite over your own senses completely, and you're right to, because your own senses genuinely can't do this anymore. But something else can. Right now, somewhere on the planet, an animal that has never seen a weather map is already moving to safety, hours or even days before the storm exists on any human forecast. And the question worth asking is, how does an animal with no radar and no satellite know something is coming before the meteorologists do? Start with birds, because they give the clearest, most visible version of this. Before Hurricane Charlie made landfall in Florida in 2004, staff at Miami's zoo watched flamingos do something they don't normally do, gathering into tight, huddled groups in the most sheltered corners of their enclosure a full 24 hours before the storm hit. Nobody trained them to do that. And it's not unique to flamingos. Birds across dozens of species have been tracked flying inland or dropping to lower altitudes well ahead of hurricanes making landfall, sometimes leaving an area entirely before a single cloud is visible. The leading explanation is barometric pressure. Storms are, at their core, a dramatic drop in air pressure, and birds fly through the air constantly, which makes them exquisitely sensitive to exactly that kind of change. A falling pressure system makes the air thinner and flight physically harder. So birds descend to conserve energy, the same way you'd stop climbing a mountain if the air suddenly got harder to breathe. Researchers tracking white-crowned sparrows found them changing behavior 12 to 24 hours before an incoming storm, responding to a pressure drop no human in the same field could feel at all. Birds aren't the only ones reading pressure. Sharks do it too, and in a stranger way, because they're reading it through water. Tracking data from storms, including Hurricane Charlie and Tropical Storm Gabrielle, showed sharks moving into deeper water hours, sometimes days, before landfall, diving below the turbulence a hurricane churns up near the surface. Bees do a version of the same thing on land, streaming back to the hive early on an afternoon that looks completely ordinary to a person standing in the same field, because a beekeeper who's paid attention for years knows exactly what an unusually quiet, empty afternoon means. Then there's a sense most people have never even considered: infrasound. This is sound at a frequency so low the human ear can't register it at all, but storms generate enormous amounts of it, and that sound can travel for hundreds of miles, far beyond the range of any visible warning sign. Elephants are the clearest documented case. Their ability to detect infrasound from distant storms is well established, letting a herd start moving toward water sources long before rain that's still days away and hundreds of miles off actually arrives. It's not a mystical sense. It's a frequency of sound that exists all around us, all the time, that most animals are simply built to hear, and we are not. Now, some of the disaster sensing stories go further than storms entirely, into something even harder to explain: earthquakes and tsunamis. Before the Indian Ocean tsunami in 2004, observers in Sri Lanka reported elephants and antelope moving inland, away from the coast, hours before the wave hit, in numbers striking enough that very few wild animal deaths were recorded in the same areas that devastated human coastal communities. The leading theories layer on top of each other. Animals may feel the seismic vibrations of an earthquake through their feet or bodies before a human would notice anything at all. They may hear the infrasound generated by a wave still far out at sea. Some scientists have even proposed that animals sense the electromagnetic disturbance created when a massive volume of salt water moves through the Earth's magnetic field. None of these are proven beyond doubt individually, but taken together, they paint a fairly consistent picture. Whatever the exact mechanism, something genuinely measurable is happening, well before the danger arrives. There's also smell. Before rain falls, many people can already recognize a specific scent in the air, that sharp, mineral smell right before a storm, which comes partly from ozone pushed down to ground level by the storm's turbulence, and partly from a compound called petrichor released from soil and plants as humidity rises. Animals with a far more sensitive nose than ours pick up exactly that same shift, only earlier and more precisely. Humidity and airborne particles changing in ways a dog or a deer can register from much further away and much further in advance than any person standing outside. Step back from all of this for a second, because there's a pattern worth naming plainly. None of this is magic. Every single one of these senses, barometric pressure, infrasound, electromagnetic fields, scent, ground vibration, is a real, physical, measurable phenomenon. What's actually happening is that animals evolved sensory equipment tuned to detect these signals because, for millions of years, detecting them early was the difference between surviving a disaster and not. A bird that couldn't feel a pressure drop got caught flying in a hurricane. A shark that couldn't read turbulence got shredded near the surface. There was never a mystical prediction happening. There was just a nervous system built, generation after generation, to notice things human senses were never built to notice. Which raises the obvious question, why did we lose it? The honest answer is, humans probably never had these abilities in the same form to begin with, at least not to this degree, but we did once rely far more heavily on whatever version we had. Before modern shelter, forecasting, and instant communication, human survival also depended on reading subtle environmental cues, cloud patterns, wind shifts, the behavior of the animals around you. Once weather satellites, barometers, and phone alerts took over that job completely, there was no evolutionary or practical pressure left to keep those instincts sharp, and skills that go unused, in any species, tend to fade. We didn't lose a superpower. We just built a better tool and let the old one go quiet. The same way a city dweller loses the ability to navigate by starlight that a sailor centuries ago couldn't survive without. It's also worth being clear about where the evidence is solid and where it's still just a good story. Sharks diving deep, birds dropping altitude, elephants sensing infrasound. These are documented with tracking data and repeated observation across multiple storms. The tsunami elephants and the earthquake-sensing pets are supported by real, repeated anecdotal reports and some genuine research, but scientists are still working out the exact mechanism, and lead times are often just minutes, not the dramatic hours-long warning folklore sometimes claims. Meanwhile, older beliefs, like cows lying down specifically to predict rain, have far weaker evidence behind them and may just be pattern matching after the fact. The real picture sits somewhere between total myth and total certainty. Genuinely extraordinary senses, doing something scientifically real, just not quite the flawless early warning system folklore likes to describe. So here's the shape of it. A falling number on a barometer that no person in the room can feel sends a flamingo into a huddle and a shark into deep water. A sound too low for any human ear reaches an elephant from hundreds of miles off. A shift in the air that most people would never register at all tells a herd on a coastline to start walking inland, hours before the wave that will erase that same coastline arrives. None of it is a sixth sense. It's senses 1 through 5, just tuned to a range we can no longer hear. And the next time a storm rolls toward your city and your phone buzzes with a warning, somewhere nearby, an animal already knew. It didn't need the notification. It felt the air change, the way something in all of us probably could too, a very long time ago, before we built something better and let that particular sense go quiet.